Hey, I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. I'm not sure how you found us, but I want to let you know that we have made it as easy as possible for you to find, follow, and share this podcast with as many people as possible. All you have to do is type in Community Solutions, and we're in the Apple iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, we're on Spotify, and as usual, you can find it out on YouTube or by going directly to podbabble.com, the great podcast network that we're part of. So go out there and go nuts, because the more that you share this information, the greater opportunity that you have to change your community. So thank you again for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
Ooh, I've been wandering around, but I still come back to you. In rain or shine, you stood by me, girl. I'm happy at home. You're my best friend. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter.
Good to start off the show with little Phil Collins, right?
No.
No, who is that?
Queen.
Queen. I remember those guys.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. I know what they sang. I bet I can name something.
I'm sure.
Right. Okay. Another one bites the dust.
Yes.
Okay.
That is
there,
there's good.
I got one.
I'll just edit out maybe part of that dead air there.
Well, I thought
Dead air makes for great radio.
Well, I blanked. You know, you say a band, and sometimes you've heard them a million things. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I could name 50 Beatles songs if I sat down for a half an hour and thought about it. My Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's a rainy day today, but it's okay. It's not going to get us down. We're bringing the sunshine to you, Minnesota.
Right. Always a sunny day in our world.
Yes.
Remember that.
That is true. That is our motto. Well, if it's not really our motto, but
motto, M-O-T-T-O.
Yes.
Motto. Oh,
Yes,
I thought you said
motto.
model.
Yeah, it's our model.
Sorry, I got extra wax in my ear this week.
Oh boy, maybe you got earwax.
I won't hear anything you have to say that I don't want to hear, Jay. That's the thing for this week.
Well, I guess that means that it's going to be a pretty one-sided conversation today.
Well, sometimes yourself's the best conversation you have all day.
Sometimes it is. Well, we're going to, as you could tell by the song today, about being best friends and rain and shine, and we're bringing the rainbows. We're bringing the puppies today. This is going to be great. We're talking about race equality at the local level.
Wow.
We're going to join
I'm
hands
excited,
and
you?
run and skip. And
We are the world.
I almost chose that
Oh,
song
really?
for
Yeah.
today.
Just want to start singing around a campfire, don't you?
I do. And I might. Maybe I'll break out in a song in the middle of the podcast and just... we're going to throw it all to the wind today, folks. So, yes, we're going to get into this issue. I know a lot of people don't like to bring this up because there's always the threat that goes along with it about being called a racist or whatever. I don't have that fear because I love everybody, you know? And to me, it's like, it doesn't matter what you look like. You're another human being. You have value. You have worth. You could be way smarter than me. You might not be, but you have skills in some area. I probably don't. I mean, we're all different, and that's part of what makes the world beautiful, Andrew.
Yes, but that's also what makes equity so, I don't want to say impossible to achieve, but I mean,
Right.
We're all different with different skill sets, so how can we all be the same?
Well,
It's just
we
kind
are the
of,
world, Andrew.
Yeah, it's just kind of backwards thinking here. And
Yeah.
I think what we're referring to here is some cities have taken the initiative to, I don't even know what you call this, because when you read this stuff, it's kind of a mixture of you know, blanket statements that don't really come with any action plan behind it.
Right.
It sounds politically correct.
And it sounds great.
Well, I think it sounds like it's meant to pacify X amount of people.
Right.
And there's, to me, a great, I don't want to say danger in this, but we've had, Jay, let me back up a second. We've had, I don't know that racial issues is the right way to put it, cultural differences since the beginning of this country. We've had stretches of immigration from, the Anglo-Saxon people who first came here to people from Southern and Eastern Europe, which happened in the 1890s, through about 1920. We've seen Mexican immigration or Hispanic, however you want to put it, as well as Asian. I mean, it's different. We've seen political dissidents come here from other nations. We've seen people migrate. And now we're seeing a different level from other cultures too, and all thrown into this thing called America. Okay?
Yeah.
And there's been divides among religions, cultures, homeland. It really has gone on forever, hasn't it? I mean, people, young people can't identify with how radical it was for President Kennedy, a Catholic, to be elected president. Maybe we understand it maybe through the lens of, say, President Obama. But we don't see it from, a Catholic? What was the big... I mean, today that wouldn't even be... I'm not even sure that would be a big deal.
Right, but remember, there was a time when just being Irish was enough to be like the scourge of the country.
There certainly was. I mean, Italians, I think, faced that. I think German Americans faced that during World War I. Japanese Americans faced that during World War II, although... I think, well, I won't get into that, my opinion on that. That's just off topic.
Right.
But so we've seen cultures try to, New York City had its Little Italy and its, whatever. People don't just, if you throw them all in a basket, they don't all just meld together. I think if there's something that's happening today that is concerning to me, it's the coming to America to be an American.
Yeah.
And everybody's not that. They identify themselves as something else first. I'm a hyphenated American. No. I'm here to work to send money back to somewhere else. It's like the motive for coming here seems to be different.
Right.
And how are these folks going to assimilate into this country? Because I don't want a neighborhood cluster of something. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that that's beneficial.
Right.
So we're seeing in these cities, in the suburbs, especially the first and second ring, which were, I grew up in Crystal, as you know, and it was a city that was probably 95% white people, maybe more than that. I mean, I remember a handful of minority kids, but it's nothing like it is now, especially among young people. And so there's this grappling in these suburbs that I don't think was there 30 years ago.
Right.
No,
I mean, growing up in Duluth, I mean, we certainly didn't have a lot of diversity either. Diverse meant we allowed Finns in with us Swedes and Norwegians.
Well, in Duluth, you had a radical Democrat and you had a socialist Democrat. I mean, those were different things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's That's exactly the way that things worked out. It's still the way it is today. But things have changed in Duluth as well, and I know that. I mean, there was always like a large indigenous population in Duluth. You've got
See, when I grew up, we called that Indian.
Yeah, same.
I know the word police are out there now. We don't call it that anymore.
Having roots back in Kentucky,
it's true. You got your Cherokees don't like it, my man Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I'm not like Elizabeth Warren Indian. I'm like actual Indian.
We don't call you Pocahontas?
No. I'm not going to try and use it for gain or anything like that. But it does make us kind of check how we speak. I mean, and sometimes things are good for a while, and then we have to change the vernacular because of something or another. And so how do we do this? And this is kind of what we butt up against, all kind of learning to live together in cities and trying to figure out how to run an educational system when, in my opinion, the educational system already isn't good. But then you're bringing in people who don't speak English, and you're trying to teach them how to do math and how to read and how to do all this other stuff, chemistry, whatever, and bring them up to speed with all these people that have spoken English their whole life. And how do you make that happen? It's a logistical nightmare. I'm glad that I'm not in charge of trying to figure that out. But
well, unfortunately, the schools, to a certain extent, have had this dumped on them.
Right.
And to a certain extent, they've advocated for the politicians that have let this happen. Hey,
yes.
Sorry, throwing
it's
that
true.
out there, too.
It's true.
But, let me ask you this, Jay. I mean, if we haven't been able to solve, I guess my point is it's 2018, so we've been around for 242 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It might, Cooper math right there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. What gives any idea that the city council in Edina, the part-time city council, or St. Louis Park, or Woodbury, or Hopkins, or Mankato,
Eagan, Minnetonka, Duluth,
and a partridge in a pear tree,
Yeah.
is going to solve this problem either with some racial equity fact sheet or task force or to-do list?
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of pie in the sky to me.
It seems. I mean, first off, let me ask a question.
Okay.
If you're on a city council, okay, you take an oath to the Constitution, an oath to your city charter. If it's not a charter city, you take an oath to abide by the statutes and all that kind of thing.
Right.
How in the world? Your city charter, I'll just use Crystal because we know that city so well,
Yes.
says you are there to provide police, to provide fire protection, roads, parks. You're not there to redistribute wealth. You're not there to fix every inadequacy. You're not there to manipulate housing. You're not there to make sure that nobody says a naughty word anywhere. Or I mean, where is this in the scope of what they are tasked with doing? Now, look, you can't control necessarily who moves into a city. You can control some other factors.
Right.
But what is the city's authority, a city's authority to do something of this nature?
Well, they're taking it upon themselves. I mean, again, we have. I'm gonna go out on a limb. It's a really thick limb, really sturdy limb.
Must be the one I was just on.
It might be a tree trunk to say that city staff is bringing this issue into cities because they've been told it's the trendy thing to do, and they're.
Yeah, but what is staff's motive? I mean, if I'm working at St. Louis Park, what's my motive to come to the city council and say, well, we need a feel-good initiative here, and we need, to commit to racial equity and providing services, even though nobody can point to any inequities.
Well, I think it's multifaceted. I mean, for one, it makes them feel good about themselves.
And
that's
self-backpatting.
Right. look how trendy we are. Look how inclusive we are.
How progressive we are.
Look at how progressive we are. I think, on the other hand, though, that they'll never admit to this, but
Ooh, this would be good.
they don't want to tell people this, but they don't believe that minorities can lift themselves up by their bootstraps, and without the help of government, they're not able to make it.
I would add a third.
Yeah.
That they would never, ever say. And I think that this is implied in all of this stuff, but that any white person is automatically ahead, automatically privileged, assumed to be the racial instigator, if you will, assumed to be afraid of a black person, assumed to be not wanting to go to a store that black people shop at, assumed to use slurs. And I'm going to tell you something.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, I think that there is that element too, that whites need to be, not so much that blacks have to be brought up, but that whites need to be pulled down. We can't let you achieve. We've got to take from you.
Yeah.
And I think that element's there too. It's certainly there among politicians who want to redistribute wealth. You hear the term white privilege. I'm white. I've been white for 41 and a half years. And I still don't know what that means, because when I wanted to go to college, nobody gave me a free lunch. Nobody paid for my car. Nobody paid for my tuition. My father paid for that. I paid for my car. There was no job standing there, whites only, waiting for me. I don't know what white privilege is. I don't understand it. And to me, if I went out and used certain language, my life could be over. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean I'd get killed. I mean, I'd get a label on me that I'm a racist, and I'd end up being the guy from Seinfeld. Okay, so the point being, I have no idea what that term means. But I think that there's an assumption that if you're white, you're automatically ahead. You automatically have... And look, I'm not black. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know what their life is like.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm white, and I'm definitely not ahead.
I mean, nobody's paying my rent.
Come
so
shadow me for a week, and you'll go back to...
I would agree.
You might change your thinking.
I couldn't take it for a day, so I mean...
Really?
So I'm just,
oh my goodness.
So I mean, I think that's the third element of it, though. That if a white neighborhood... But this is a bad analogy, okay? But I'm going to say it anyway, because it's going to be a little lighthearted here, too.
Okay.
If you throw a lot of some chocolate chips in a vanilla shake, then all of a sudden there's just assumed that there's going to be problems. Don't we just assume that? I mean, for example, I mean, I'll use Crystal for an example. There's more minorities than there were 25 years ago. They're still far and away the minority. But do you sense that there's racial tension and unrest in the city, or inequality and
not in my neighborhood,
the bus service or the fire protection? I mean,
no.
So what? What is the problem that this is aiming to solve? That.
Well,
I'm going to use this segue into Edina here in a second. So
I think that there's one other facet before we move on.
We got a fourth one.
We do.
Maybe I'll think of a fifth one while you think of a fourth.
Okay. And I think it ties into it. And this is part of what they see as the problem. They want to involve a more racially diverse population in city government, because many minorities are beginning to find out that liberalism isn't all it's cracked up to be, especially as they start to pull themselves out of the situation they're in and begin to own businesses and make money and buy cars and all this kind of thing. That in poverty, even white people, don't have the ability to do this stuff. But as they begin to own things and run businesses, they get a different mindset on the world. And liberal policies have kept the handouts coming for so long that once though people have started through the generations to move out from under that, they're going to more conservative policies. I would say that there are at least more outspoken conservative minorities than there have been in a long time. And I think that really puts a lot of fear into the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and I would say I would agree with that, especially outside the black population. You've seen Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans. You look at President Trump, everybody talks about him, being racially divisive. He got the same percentage of the Hispanic vote as Mitt Romney got because of the policies that are behind it. So I would agree that there, and I am gonna add a fifth point.
Okay.
I'm gonna take it further than that. Is that as the Democrats move further to the left, and they've gone, 15 years ago, Bernie Sanders was kicked out of the Democratic Party for being too radical. Now he's mainstream.
Right.
He's a mainstream liberal. You go through the things he wants, 8 out of 10 Democrats are with him.
Yep.
On policy, maybe not with him,
right,
since he's 107 years old. But, it's not out of whack with what they think. But I've said this before, the Democrats, it builds on your point, they want people to be down.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to achieve.
It doesn't matter if you're white or minority or anybody.
They want you angry. They want you blaming somebody. They want you to hate your boss more than you hate terrorists. They want you to have this boogeyman to go after.
Mm-hmm.
And if they lose that, then they lose their whole identity. Basically, they look at people and say, you can't succeed.
That was my point number 2. Yeah, you can't succeed without us.
You're not capable of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is that element there, too. But I've said this before. The Great Society was about taking my tax dollars and buying votes with them.
Yeah.
If it was designed to help people move up, it's failed beyond according to any measurable standard, it's failed.
Yeah.
And yet it's still there. It's still spending our money. We're still pouring millions of dollars into this crap and getting almost nothing in return from it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, back to the racial equality stuff.
But I think that's how we got here. I think that's why these things are popping up. I don't think it's everybody's got the warm fuzzies and, it's like some epiphany that, minorities haven't been involved in government because we haven't made room for them to come into government. No. Anybody that has red blood, which for those of you who don't know, that's everybody, has the ability that if they so desire, they could run for political office. But I'm going to tell you, from the races that I've seen outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul, there are very few minority candidates that run.
Even there aren't what you think there are.
Right.
It's still a majority white councils for the most part, even though those cities are 40%. And still, there's exceptions to that, but for the most part, they are. Even Minneapolis is somewhat underrepresented.
Well, I would say it's terribly underrepresented because how many percent of the people in Minneapolis are conservatives, and there are 0 conservatives?
Yeah, that's true. Why don't we have a task force to get conservatives on?
I like
proportional government.
There we go. Yeah. Everybody gets represented.
But, representing in government, you earn it. I've said this before. Yeah. We made fun of Edina a few weeks ago about how they are complaining their 5-person city council doesn't have any black people on it, and 2% of the population is black. Well, what's 2% of 5?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many black candidates ran that? Well, you don't have a candidate. I don't know how you can have a council person.
Right.
So I want to look at, you can go to edinamn.gov, my friends, if you want to play along. They have a 189-page race and equity report in Edina.
Wow.
Now, folks, stick with me on this here. We're not going to go through the whole damn thing. You can go there and get this yourself. But it's interesting what they do in here. First of all, they work with this group called Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which is an NGO that's popped up out there that's going around trying to implement. You'll hear this group again in this podcast.
Yeah,
they're
it's
one
true.
of these people going around trying to push a certain agenda, if you will. And they go through this entire thing about their approach to racial equality. They use something called the orange method. No, they don't fall from trees. The orange method is an interactive model of community engagement. It came from some guy named Dr. Joy Lewis, founder of JoyUnlimited.com. Boy, I'd love to have this guy's gig. Or gal, I don't know who the hell it is. Doesn't matter. But again, this is just another facilitator who's there to limit the scope of something.
Right.
But they're not there to freely. We've talked about facilitators on the show, Jay.
Yeah.
That they're there to get a desired result.
They come in with an agenda.
Right. I mean, is it if you go through these race and equity things, you'll notice most of them are all kind of the same. I mean, they may have different words.
Yeah.
But they pretty much have the same goal. I mean, is it a coincidence that all these places just all of a sudden just develop the same? It's just a coincidence if you look in every comprehensive plan, you see the same 25 words. I mean, was this really written by them? My guess is these people come in with a predetermined outcome. These things are kind of like watching wrestling.
Right.
There's a predetermined outcome. You're not quite sure how you're going to get there, but there's a predetermined outcome, okay?
Right.
I know Hulk Hogan's going to beat Andre the Giant, but I don't know how it's going to happen.
Right.
And I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know who's going to ref or who's going to interfere. And it's the same thing here. This is the professional wrestling of race and equity statements. Here's my favorite part. There was an online survey. If you're in this thing, following along at home, it's page 21, where they ask all these questions, and yet they do not give the answers to the questions that are asked. Now, it says that they're in Appendix K. Well, I went back to Appendix K on page 155, and I didn't find answers. I found 14 comments.
Okay.
So there's 219 people that supposedly took this, and we don't have answers to the questions they asked. Now, here's the first question.
Okay. Am I supposed to answer these?
I don't know.
Okay.
I love, you gotta love this. Please describe your experiences, observations of race-based discrimination that have occurred in Edina, including interactions with city government employees within city facilities, services, and organizations. 219 answered, 0 skipped.
Really?
Of course, we don't know what their answers are.
Right.
If you shared an example, wait a minute. Basically, it's so 219 people supposedly answered. Do you live within the city of Edina? Do you? They wanted to know your gender, your race, your ethnicity. 80 refused to answer.
Really?
And I'd like to know, out of 219 people, there's 14 comments in Appendix K. I believe answering that question, although it doesn't say. If only 14 out of 219 answered, and some of them answered, no, haven't experienced any. No, never seen it.
Yeah.
No, blah, blah, blah. Why then is this even going forward? I mean, if I asked people, let me put it to you this way.
Yes.
If I asked somebody, should we hire this person or not? And there were 219 people who got to vote on whether we hired somebody for a job.
Okay.
And there wasn't any objection to it, or everybody said no, would I go forward with anything at that point?
No.
So if there's no problems here,
Yeah.
why don't we just stop and go, well, I guess we don't have a problem here. We can move on to something more important.
Right. I don't know. And I mean, we're looking at what, what was the number again?
19.
219. The population of Edina as of 2010 was 47,941 people. You know, it's not a very good sampling. I mean, if you're going to take some sort of a poll and you talk to 200 people out of almost 50,000, I mean, that's bad, isn't it?
Well,
they estimate now there's over 51,000 people there.
Well, and again, I mean, any kind of poll or something, I mean, it's impossible to...
Yeah, you can't hit everybody, but...
And it's an online survey, so, you know, if it's online, you're trusting them that they live in Edina,
How many people got steered to this thing? Hey, we're putting this survey out there where you go fill it out.
I have no idea.
And that skews the results, too, and we don't know any of it.
Could be. And by the way, when you have 85% white people, did 85% of the people answer be white? I mean, that'd be if I were taking a poll for president.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the country? 70% white, Jay? 75%, something like that. 10% black, 10% Hispanic, something like that. And I had a survey of nothing but white people. How accurate would my survey be?
Probably
not very.
No.
So if you have to take into account people who are rich, people who are poor, people who live in the city, people who live in the country.
Right.
That's why poll taking is done by professionals who do this all the time.
Yeah.
And have a method or a sample. That's why there's a margin of error. I don't know how we can, put much stock into this. I mean, they list a bunch of recommendations here. Recommendation number 1. Ensure the following set of guidelines to create an environment where people of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds feel welcome and included is delivered consistently all across Edina city facilities. So the city facilities are not welcoming,
I guess. Only some people get to go use the community center, I guess.
Conduct regular training for all employees in customer service, racial, cultural awareness, responsiveness, conflict resolution, citywide procedures and policies, and other training needs as identified to ensure all facility guests. Sorry, this is small print. Guests enjoy a consistent, welcoming experience. Now, Jay, you're a smart guy, college graduate.
Yeah.
What does that say there? Because I'm lost as to what is a culturally aware response.
Well,
is that touchy-feely class?
Maybe.
Is that
maybe they'll shut it down? And
is that the language police?
It could be.
Can't say this, can't say that. Can't point at a certain culture. You can't. You can't. Hey, look, when I worked for Best Buy, I mean, I was told I didn't work with customers, but sometimes I was in the stores.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, me either. And they would say, you can't point because in some cultures they don't like that.
Yeah,
you can't say Merry Christmas. Some cultures don't celebrate that. Is that what we're talking
Maybe
about?
It might be talking about putting signs up in every different language, like you see in Hennepin County buildings. Where
right, but that encourages people to not assimilate.
Yeah,
it encourages people to stay separate.
Right,
not learn our language. You don't know English, you are 10 steps behind in this country. Sorry to tell you that, but it's true.
Yeah, it would definitely benefit the people who come here.
Right, you're limited. You're limited if you don't know English. I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth.
I'm definitely not one of those learn English or get out people.
I'm not either. But
I think that that's wrong, but I think that you do yourself a disservice if you don't learn it.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely.
But maybe that's culturally insensitive, according to these people, and I would need some sort of sensitivity training. They would have sent me to Starbucks today or whatever. So I could.
Well, how about I got to get this print bigger.
Okay.
Or I need glasses. One of the two.
You might need some bifocals.
Probably both.
Yeah.
Ensure each You just said signage, Jay.
Yeah.
Ensure each facility has wayfinding signage and printed materials in multiple languages, at least 3.
Wow. Which 3?
Okay, example, Spanish, Hmong, and Somali.
Okay. Well, what about people that come here from China? No.
Yeah, China, the most populous country in
Yeah.
the entire
How about
world.
India? There's lots of Indians here. Well, why don't we put it in Hindi?
Put it among them. I'm just entertaining myself.
Yeah, I know.
Ensure digital and printed communications reflects racial and cultural diversity through images, stories, and voices. So does that mean there's a cartoon? We got to have one guy named Muhammad, one guy named Mike, and one guy named Felipe?
No, you can't put Muhammad in a cartoon.
Oh, you can't?
No, remember?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We'll call him Ali.
Okay.
Ali,
I think that's safe.
Mike, what did I say? Andres, and I don't know some other name. What's another culturally? We'll do an Irish. O'Brien. So those are the 4 people. We got the token black guy. The I mean, that's
I
what
don't
that
think
means.
they speak Gaelic so much anymore over there, but okay.
You say, are you?
So, yeah, apparently what you said is true. I am a smart college grad, and I can figure this stuff out. Signage. We know this because we've seen it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. It's the same thing with, I believe it ties in also with the culturally complete streets movement that's going on, where the artwork has to be representative. Representative of the cultures that are in your community as well. You don't want to walk in and see a bunch of paintings by old dead white guys,
Right.
you want to see other things. You want to see different skin tones and in your artwork. You want to see different styles representative of Cuban painters and photographs from
You name it.
the
doesn't matter.
Easter Islands. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had enough of Edina. If you want to go on their website,
I had enough of Edina a long time ago.
I did too. But I'm going to go to a city I've also had enough of.
Yeah.
St. Louis Park.
Yes.
City we're sitting in, Jay, right now.
Yes.
Okay, I am within St. Louis Park. Mayor Spano, I'd like to say hi. I am within your part as you try and use the mayorship to move up to something else and get your face on with your fogged up glasses on the paper everywhere. Wow. St. Louis Park has not only done this as well, but they've sought out a racial equity coordinator. I'd like to know what that pays.
Oh, a lot.
By the way, just to give you an example, an idea of what, where did I see this? They had 324 applicants for this.
Yes, they did. 324 people.
Any white men apply for this? Oh, I'm sorry. No, just kidding. They hired Alicia Sojourner. How do you pronounce
Sojourner?
that? Sojourner.
Yes.
Whatever. Can't pronounce it. I apologize. I don't know how to say this. Sojourner. We'll just say Sojourner. Who previously served as a racial equity consultant manager for the YMCA. What do you get a degree in to serve as that? Actually, in today's college, I would believe almost anything. Here are some quotes from her. We have to talk about race, and it's okay to talk about race. This is not just wait. First, I want to comment on that.
Yeah.
Anybody who talks about race, how many times when we talk about race is the word racist thrown around 10 seconds later?
Yeah.
Now, you want to have an open
A
and
lot.
honest conversation, then you can't shut people out by calling them that.
That's true.
If I came out and said, we have a problem in the black community because 3 out of 4 black kids are born outside of marriage. That's a fact. I didn't make it up. But how young people have called me a racist just for saying that? It's like, okay, well, what's your solution to this problem? And black leaders will not confront it. They don't want anything to do with it.
There are racists.
True. And it's a disservice
Right.
to the actual racists.
I mean, Ku Klux Klan.
Right.
You've got them. You've got people like Planned Parenthood that was created to kill black babies.
Right. Which is
nobody calls them out.
Yeah, total difference. Yeah.
Jesse
Jackson once referred to them as black genocide.
Yeah.
But as soon as he wanted to run for president, different tune. He had to conform with all the people around him. So, yeah, so talking about race is not that simple. If you're not willing to have an open and honest conversation, then we're just stuck where we are. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
What does it feel like to be a person of color and work for the city of St. Louis Park? Well, what's it supposed to feel like? You're going to a job, punching the clock, doing a job, and going home.
You should hate it just like everybody else.
You should be as miserable as everybody else. Ever walked into a city office? It's worse than riding the bus. What does it feel like to be a Somali mom coming in and needing help with housing and walking into this building? Huh? Why would you go to City Hall to need help with housing?
That's a county issue.
Well,
Hennepin County handles housing. They have a housing authority to handle housing.
Well, that's
Why
true,
would they walk into the city of St. Louis Park? If they do, you say, hey, Hennepin County has these great programs. Let me get you connected.
I don't know. There's...
I just did that with zero training. You see that? I'm qualified to work for the city of St. Louis Park, I think.
No doubt about it. I think you might be overqualified.
Well, there is that.
But
you said it, not me.
I don't get it. Let me just ask: what does a racial coordinator spend 40 hours a week doing?
Well, that's a good question, especially when you're responsible for in St. Louis Park, 20% of the population. Or are you responsible for making sure 80% of the population changes their tune?
Uh-huh.
Hmm?
So is that what's going on again? Again, it's the bringing down the majority.
Well, and I'm not the one saying this. The new racial equity coordinator says it this way. We have to talk about race, and it's okay to talk about race. So she already gave us the green light, and I thank you for that. You have my gratitude. So I don't want to receive any comments about us being racist because we have the go-ahead. All right. She also continues, this is not just about policies and procedures, which are really important. We also have to have a behavioral switch, the heart side switch. What culture do we want to see, and how do we reshape that culture?
So it's getting in, particularly, I'm guessing, the heads of young people.
Probably.
And shaping them to think a certain way.
Probably. It's a lot harder to change the way that older people think because they have a lot more years of experience. Propaganda is always seems to be aimed at the younger folk when you're looking at training up a generation. That's where you go.
Right. In 2016, St. Louis Park and city staff participated in a year-long program from guess where? Oh, first off, one was the League of Minnesota Cities. Another was the GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. We've heard them. The other is the Center for Social Inclusion. The city had the following goals in mind: gain an understanding of racial equity, develop a shared racial equity analysis, including definitions, analyze policies and practices from a racial equity perspective. Is that kind of like being a world citizen or something like that? Strategize with others on how government can advance racial equity. Well, it can't. It's been trying to do that for 200 years, and it's failed miserably. So far, the city has developed a racially equitable statement. Oh, wow. And I'm sure that was plagiarized from one of these groups.
But it's a heck of a statement.
Provided training to all its city staff. So probably the same thing that we saw before. The word police, the printing it in Hmong. Begun word, who cares? Okay. They even have a brochure. Oh, my God. Has this got beautiful pictures? And by the way, St. Louis Park population. This is very interesting. They're once again... Oh, go ahead, Jay.
The problem is that they really think there is a problem, and
no, that too.
You know, this isn't about creating opportunity. This is about correcting a problem. Listen to this other statement. This being from Ms. Sojourner. I don't know. I guess, can I use Ms.? I don't know if I can, because she compared racial equity work to discussions on gender identity, bathroom policies, and the use of pronouns, which I just used, I guess, kind of. Well, I wasn't pronoun. I did use she, didn't I? Sorry. I didn't mean that.
What would you say in she's place?
Don't come at me, bro. I mean, sis. I mean, what's that?
What would you use in place of she? I just want to
her.
Huh?
His her.
Okay.
His her.
St. Louis Park talks about their workforce here. Yeah. 266 employees.
Yeah, it's a big city, I'm sure. But
249 are white.
But think
of course that's a problem. Right. Of course, Mayor Spano, you could resign.
Yeah.
Put a black person in your place.
Nobody's stopping you from stepping down.
You won't do that.
No. And, you know, I would look at your city manager, since your city manager is in charge of hiring all your personnel.
And I bet the city manager's white, too. Don't you hire...
he is, remember?
Yeah, don't you hire the city manager there, city council? So you're really doing a great job then.
Problem they created. But yet...
Of course, again, I go back to, don't you need qualified people?
Yeah.
If half the minorities in Minneapolis are dropping out of high school... What are the odds they're going to be a teacher, fireman, policeman, business person, lawyer, doctor? Pretty bad. So don't you have to fix that problem before you... How can you hire black cops if there's only so many out there that are... Minneapolis and St. Paul gobble a lot of them up too.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that?
We do have to get people to stay in school longer. Maybe not the government schools. Maybe we need to figure something else out, you know, some way to create a different system. And so maybe there's somebody out there, white, black, or otherwise, that has a great idea on an entrepreneurial venture to fix what's wrong with our educational system. But, you know...
the last thing they need is a fix.
But going back to this, I mean, they really do feel there is a problem. I mean, to be on the line of the whole gender equality with the bathrooms and the use of pronouns, these are people who think that it is wrong that men should be in one bathroom and women in another bathroom. They think that is evil and
unfair somehow.
What would you call that kind of person? Not
gender neutral. I don't know what.
Well, no, like xenophobes are afraid of people who immigrate here, you know, and racists are people that don't like people of different colors. Agists are people that don't like someone of another age group. What would you call
somebody who doesn't like men's and women's bathrooms? I don't know. Bathroom phobia? I don't know.
Well, no, but you know what I mean.
I get it, but I don't know.
We are afraid of people that are different than us. Afraid of people that are gender confused. Afraid of people that identify differently in that way. And again, it's the slapping on of labels, right? And it's just a way for them to strip us of what we believe to be right and wrong, and
right.
put government morals in their place.
But Jay, I go back to this racial equity coordinator. She says we need to talk about race, and then sets boundaries about what we can say.
Right.
So it's like, well, you need to change your language. Well, wait a minute. You said we can have a conversation, but I can only have it the way you want it.
Right. Well, and that's part of the problem. You know, it's like I said earlier in the podcast, where they want to create an environment where they don't believe that people of minority status are smart enough, talented enough to be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and make something happen for them in life. And so they have to create a special class. They have to create room and help people into that space. It's ridiculous.
And by the same token, they've got to make whites feel guilty, whites feel bad, whites to shut up if they don't like something. Because, I mean, political correctness, I've said this before, is the ultimate form of censorship. You know, the language police are always making new rules.
Well, and what are they talking about? This is in St. Louis Park, right, where they're talking about providing or making landlords pay for moving costs in certain situations. Yeah. You know, and it just goes back to that same principle. I know there are some other cities that are doing this too. We could spend all year on Edina and St. Louis Park because they're terrible. But I mean, even Hopkins, which is close to here, I mean, you're noticing these things are happening in clusters. Why? Because one city is starting to copy another city, just like we always talk about, Andrew.
Well, and Hopkins, it's getting radical. I mean, you think this has been bad? Hopkins, I'm at a gasp of what I have seen here. They have, again, I'm at hopkinsmn.com, and it's under the Hopkins Race and Equity Initiative, which again, they again use the same groups, same everything. Let's talk about race in Hopkins. Boy, where have you heard that before? Let's talk about race. They have a list of resources. And this is really what I think gets out of hand here. One is they have this culturally responsive books for children in elementary through middle school. Now, last I checked, the city of Hopkins is not a school district.
No,
they have a school district.
They have a school district,
different entity. But they have books recommended for greater understanding of the civil rights movement and the formation of racial identity in the United States. Again, racial identity meaning if you're black, you think this. If you're a woman, you think this. That's the label putting on that we just talked about. They have early elementary kids who can barely read are getting books recommended to them about I don't recognize any of the authors. It's just me. Somebody else might, but one book is about Rosa Parks. Another, I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with reading that. But what age is, you can't have a discussion about race with a 7-year-old. Okay, they barely recognize the word. It's not a video game. They don't know what the hell's going on. And I mean, I worry about planting stuff in their head.
Right. I mean, at that age, most people, unless they have been trained by very racist parents, don't see skin color yet. I mean, they might notice the skin color is different, but they're like, that's my friend Billy or whatever,
They don't have any. I was unaware of it. I mean, I played baseball and football with some black kids, and they lived 2 blocks from me. Nobody said a word about what color they were.
You didn't care, did you?
My parents didn't care either. Nobody knew a thing. I mean, but there's a lot of resources to talk about race with kids, things like that. This is the thing that I can't believe this is on a city website.
Okay.
This is about 3 things we can do to learn more about white privilege. Seriously, this is, again, if anybody wants to, I mean, viewing the film Mirrors of Privilege, and then some online resources, why color blindness will not end racism. White privilege, the unpacking of the invisible knapsack. We need to talk about injustice. The real reason white people say all lives matter.
Oh my word, because they do.
Yeah, this is on. I mean, again, this is on a city website. This is not on some 501c3 that's pushing an agenda.
No, this is on a city that's pushing an agenda.
Yeah, no kidding. It definitely is. I'm also, taking. They also have this. I love this chart.
Yeah.
A closer look at Hopkins. They claim 38% of Hopkins is minority.
Okay.
Yet 70.4% are white. Now, Jane, I'm no mathematician.
Yeah.
But I know that 70 plus 38 doesn't equal 100.
No, it does not.
So
it's yeah. Well, they always say you got to give 110%.
Well, that's
that
true.
gets us really close.
Reminds me of the great George Steinbrenner quote.
Yeah.
I don't ask a man to give 100%. I ask a man to give 110. It's the extra 10 that you have to get out of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Housing. Once again, there is a constant turnover. 39%. Wait a minute. No. Am I reading this right? 60.7 is renting?
Oh, let me look at this again. That can't be right. I mean, they have a lot of rentals in Hopkins. Don't get me wrong. Well, that is what it says. 60.7 is renter occupied. Owner occupied is 39.3. We thought that New Hope was bad at
that is
51%.
nuts. And I'd like to know, Hopkins, how much of those places have been subsidized by the government?
Yeah. Well, and this is what's weird. I mean, there are a lot of in Hopkins, especially around downtown, there are a lot of single-family homes, duplexes, things like that. A lot of those could be rentals. It says right in this form here that Hopkins is often like one of the first places that people move when moving into the suburbs. There are a lot of rentals. And I will say this, if you're so concerned with equity, racial equity, you guys are building a lot of luxury apartments around downtown. How is somebody that maybe is coming from a poorer area of town going to be able to get into a place like that? I don't know.
Yeah, you talk about removing barriers and things like that. They're putting it up.
Yeah.
That is a barrier,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is just outrageous. This. I mean, talking about white privilege on a city website. Yeah. There's even a donation form. You could donate to the Race and Equity Initiative.
Oh boy!
I mean, totally ridiculous. I mean, I don't want to look at this anymore. I think the thing again. I come to point out, and we can look up another city or two. I need to take a little break from it. Is once again, we see one city do something,
mm-hmm.
whether there's a problem or not, or using something as an excuse, like a police incident or something. I know that happened in Edina a couple years back. I don't see how that's justification for this.
It's not.
But incidents are going to happen. the same things again with the same groups having the same goals. We just read them to you. We're going to have multiple languages, making somebody feel welcome. We're going to have a discussion on race, but only if you say things a certain way.
Yeah.
We're back. I mean, this is scary stuff.
It can be. I mean, it depends on the work that this person does and how much weight they carry and the policies. Again, you have another staff member that you're paying a lot of money to who is going to bring things to, in this case, probably a human rights advisory committee. That human rights advisory committee, and there's been a lot of criticism around human rights committees that they don't do anything. Well, now they're getting something to do. When you get a racial equity coordinator, that they're going to be able to advise the city council on things around the city to make them more quote unquote equitable.
I don't get it. I mean, I'm lost on this. I mean, you choose to immigrate to this country. I mean, with all due respect, you have a duty to assimilate to it. I'm sorry, but you just do. But I feel like the burden is on us, the people who live here, to sort of make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel that way.
I mean, I am a huge proponent of people being able to keep their culture. I think that's important to know where you come from. You know, whether it's, I mean, I'm a Swede, mine are dumb. It's like, you know, at Christmas time,
German, I get sauerkraut. I eat sauerkraut plain.
Yeah, you know, but it's.
But again, that's different from this. I mean, keeping your culture is one thing,
right? But learning how to operate in the place where you live so that you can be successful is something else.
But let me ask you this. I mean, if we give everything to somebody in the Hmong language, what's their incentive to go out and learn English now?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're just going to do it for me. Government will put it out there. Next, it'll be road signs. Next, it'll be...
Well, it's already here. I mean, to a certain extent, it's kind of here already. I mean, not literally, but, I mean, that's the next thing coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already go get money out of the ATM. You talk to customer service. Press 1 for, I mean, it's already here, all of that.
Yeah, and it's one thing for a private business to decide that I want to, you know, we have a large number of Hispanic.
They have to do things based on their customer base.
Yeah. But it's another thing for government to say, you know what, we're just going to do this across the board. You guys are going to pay for it, even though, you know, this is really affects a very small portion of people.
Well, I mean, I look at a place like Edina that's 85% white, 2% black, 3% Latino. They don't need anything in a Hmong language. So, and there's a pop person that's Asian and all that. I mean, how many people we talking here?
Yeah.
You know, that must be my white privilege. You know, I know English, so that must be my
right.
I don't know. I'm just sort of baffled by it.
Right. No, I don't know. But I mean, it's happening all over this state, all over. I wouldn't say all over the country. You know, you look at a map from the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, GARE, and
I dare you to look at it.
Most of the map is blank, but you have your Californias, your Minnesotas, your East Coast. You have
the usual dozen states.
Yeah, you know, and it's, again, a special interest that is pouring money into a state to try and change the direction that state is trending in a lot of cases. But, I mean, you look at it, I mean, this GARE group, and we'll have to do a podcast on them later, but They're operating out of Mankato and Rochester and Red Wing and Northfield and Eagan and Burnsville and Bloomington and Edina and Minnetonka and Duluth and Coon Rapids. And they're all over the place in the state. And they are also working with the League of Minnesota Cities and out of Minneapolis, the Hennepin County Library. They are in with the 4th District Court in Hennepin County. So it's not they're in with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. So it's not.
Well, you mentioned the League of Minnesota Cities. They have an entire page built to this, building racial equity in cities. They quote the Bloomington city manager, Jamie Vergugi, who used to be the city manager of Brooklyn Park.
Okay.
Talking about it is important for us to plan for the future, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, how do you build a racially equitable city? In Seattle, Washington, which pioneered such efforts, the job included taking a new look at garbage collection and how they replace city streetlights. What? The resulting streetlight policy not only made a mostly minority neighborhood safer, it saved money too. So the streetlights are now part of the race and equity. Getting past often abstract and emotional discussions about race to reach concrete solutions is the aim of this project involving 14 cities. We're talking about GARE, which is, again, working hand in hand with the League of Minnesota Cities. Maplewood is participating in the racial effort.
Yes, they are.
At the urging of Police Chief Paul Schnell. Schnell says that while his city hasn't faced a crisis like Ferguson, Missouri, he recognizes the potential for such progressive thinking. We know the diversity is changing, yet we don't have relationships with communities that call Maplewood home. Well, whose fault is that?
Exactly.
I mean, it's a two-way street, isn't it? I mean, what are you sitting around doing, Mr. Police Chief? Why don't you get off out of the donut shop and go and if you want to do this, why don't you have town halls? Why don't you show up to their church? Why don't you do something?
Nothing is stopping him from doing any of that.
I don't know. Maplewood recently got its first Hmong city council member. The city wants to find more ways to get residents involved, says assistant city manager Mike Funk. Terry's brother? I don't know.
It might be.
They've got, of course, they've got their training methods. It's almost a buzzword saying we need to engage. We need to do a better job. We haven't done a job in governing of saying what that looks like.
Almost a buzzword?
Schnell, again, this is the police chief, wants to make sure police actions don't have a disparate effect on people because of race or gender. Well, why would is there a problem there, or are we looking for one?
Right.
The business of government is basically a relationship business. No, sir. It's called following the Constitution, following your charter, remembering your oath. That's your job. It's not to provide equity. An issue of livability. Oh, Mankato. Must be those roundabouts. Mankato's racially equity team includes its police, housing, public information, and human resources. Coinciding with the local YMCA. It's the right time to have this conversation. Oh, zippity doo dah! I'd like to know how garbage collection is a racial issue.
I really couldn't tell you.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. I got it here.
Oh, good.
In Seattle, the city used its own data. I don't know how they could find this out unless they were organized hauling. I don't know how they'd know this. Officials discovered that missed garbage pickups were much higher in communities of color. Maybe you should farm it out to the private sector. Guarantee you they won't miss them or they don't get paid. A closer look showed that a difference in housing density and the number of alleys affected regular pickup. Changes were made to assure better service. Seattle's street light replacement policy was changed after a series of shootings in a mostly African-American neighborhood. When the mayor toured the area, he noticed many of the streetlights were burnt out. Well, again,
whose fault is that?
No kidding. What's that got to do with race?
Talk to your director.
How about you fire them and get a new one?
No kidding.
Oh, my Lord. In immigrant and minority communities, most people don't know that the city is basically supposed to replace the lights. That's what they're trying to say.
I don't know what to do. It's dark.
Oh, that's almost funny if it wasn't so tragic.
Yeah, so Seattle, this is from 2014 out of the New Yorker, so you know it's true. Where is it here? I saw it. Oh, my word. All this video that pops up. Basically, it was saying that Seattle is divided into 4 waste collection zones handled by 2 different haulers, it looks like. So, yeah. So, yeah, they do have organized hauling.
So if the things were missed and picked up, then it's their government that's to blame. There's no racists in the city. There's no conversation that needs to take place.
Just a whole lot of incompetence.
It's a whole lot of horrible people that you hired, and I guarantee you they're all still working there.
Probably. Because they all belong to some
union or something that's all protecting their jobs. We all know it. You know, I'll tell you what. I mean, you know, Jay, as we wrap up here, I mean, Go to these things, read them. They are laborious to read. I will say that. And once again, you will find things that we say all the time. The same things, maybe the same things written in a different way. But this is largely poppycock here, masquerading as some sort of social justice program. We are not going to, until it's all about opportunity. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. We've talked about that. Equal opportunity, not equal outcome.
Right.
And I don't want to hear the term white privilege again. I swear I'm going to punch the next person I hear say that. Because if there's white privilege going on, I want to participate in it because I haven't. All right? Well, that's detrimental. That in and of itself is a racist thing. So I'm the language police. I've decided that that's racist, so you can't say it anymore. How do you like them apples?
There we go. So, Andrew, we're in the middle of a filing period here in Minnesota. Yeah. How much does it cost to go down and file to run for office?
Not much at a city level. $5 maybe.
$5. There you go. Talk about.
It might be more than that.
Okay.
I can't remember what I paid.
It's not much though.
No.
It's not like $30 or.
I don't think so. I know it's $100 for a state office.
Right.
It's definitely less than that.
Okay. Well, my point is that there are 2 ways you can go. One is to go the route that these governments are going in, and that is to say, you know what? You're a minority. You're just not good enough. You're not qualified. You're not talented. We need to create room for you in government so that you can have a place. Or you can come to, Community Solutions Minnesota, and we will train you we will train you in concepts for local government and help you understand how they've set this whole system up. It talk about a rigged system in some ways.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah. We will teach you all about how we got to where we're at with local government, and we will sit down with you and show you how to put together and run a competitive campaign. And I guarantee you that you will stand a much better chance at winning if you come through us. You're at least going to be competitive. You're going to feel good about yourself because you're doing it on your own. You're not walking into fill some spot that some government bureaucrat is held open for you because they don't think you're good enough to do it on your own. You are good enough to do it on your own.
And I would say this: if you're not ready to run for office, volunteer opportunities are everywhere.
Absolutely.
City commissions, joining your local Lions Club, joining, volunteering at your local Legion or VFW.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean we
do a lot of good in and out of government.
We are in a place that we're just looking at human beings. I mean, it does not matter what the color of your skin is. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's the content of your character. And if you have the kind of character that you want to make your community better, we are the group for you to be able to help you along so that you can do that. As far as running for office and filing to run for office, if you're running for school board, $2 gets skin in the game. A township office, $2 gets skin in the game. Woo. Smaller cities is anywhere from $2 to $15. Second and third class cities, which are a little more populous, anywhere from $5 to $40. And your large cities is $20 to $80. So it can be done.
Your spare change in that rented sofa with a spring sticking out of it can get you a school board raise.
Yeah, it's true. So if you want to win and you don't want something given to you, but you want to actually go and win and show these people that you are talented enough, you're good enough, all of that stuff, you come talk to us. And you can do that at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, because we believe that you are good enough here. We believe you are talented enough. We believe that you are qualified. If you want to make your community a better place, you have the character that we are looking for. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. We will take anybody from anywhere that has the right motivation, the right standards, and the right ethics, and we can turn you into somebody that will win. Yes, indeedy. So we're going to leave you with that. We're going to be back in another week, and who knows what the subject matter will be. We don't yet, but I assure you it will either be as intriguing or as infuriating as it seems to be every week. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We love you. Check us out on social media. Share this podcast with everybody, because it's only going to help you to change your community. The more people that you help understand what's going on. All right? So we've done our part. And we love you, Minnesota. And now it's your turn to get to work.